This pot is over 2,000 years old. Not really. I made this pot last week in my backyard using little more than a hole in the ground and clay I found in the dirt. But it's functionally identical to pottery made by ancient southwestern cultures thousands of years ago. So, why does it look so good? Why isn't it a cracked, lumpy, fragile mess? Because a lot of what we're told about ancient pottery is just plain wrong. We're led to believe that it's incredibly delicate, that the techniques are lost to some mystical past, and that you need special, almost magical materials just to make it. These are lies, and today we're going to shatter the 5 biggest myths modern potters believe about ancient pottery by building this exact pot, from start to finish. This is probably the biggest lie, the one that keeps so many people from even trying. We see museum pieces impossibly thin and elegant, and we think they must be as delicate as a bird's egg. We assume that without modern refined clays and computer-controlled kilns, ancient pots were just inherently weak. But the truth is, a pot's strength doesn't come from modern tech. It comes from the clay itself and, more importantly, what you mix into the clay. You see, ancient potters were masters of their local geology. They knew that pure clay shrinks as it dries, and too much shrinkage leads to cracks. The solution wasn't finding some mythical clay. The solution was temper. Think of it like the aggregate in concrete. It provides an internal skeleton for the clay. Potters in the Southwest used whatever was on hand: sand, crushed rock, volcanic ash, or even grog, which is just old, crushed up pottery. Today, for this Sinagua replica, I'm using sifted sand, and with this wild clay, I'm adding about 20% temper by volume. The process is simple: 4 parts dry powdered clay to 1 part sand, all mixed thoroughly before adding a drop of water. This simple step, this act of adding dirt to other dirt, is the first secret to making a pot that isn't fragile at all. It will be strong, resilient, and ready for the stresses of drying and firing. It's not about having perfect materials. It's about knowing how to use the materials you've got. This is the fear that haunts every potter. You spend hours on a beautiful piece, only to find it cracked the next day. Or, worse, you pulled it from the fire, and it's in a dozen pieces. The myth is that heartbreakingly high failure rate was just a fact of life for ancient people. They wouldn't have accepted that. A high failure rate wasn't an option when your pot meant the difference between storing food for the winter or going hungry. The key to preserving cracks isn't a lost secret. It's patience and paying attention. Cracks happen for 2 main reasons: uneven drying or thermal shock during the firing. The temper we just added is our first line of defense for both. By reducing shrinkage, we've already lowered the risk of drying cracks. Our second line of defense is controlling the drying process. You can't just leave a fresh pot in the sun. It has to dry slowly and evenly. I keep my pot covered with a cloth in a shady spot till it's completely dry. The goal here is to get the rim, walls, and base to dry at the same rate. Once it's bone dry, it's then ready to fire. And this is where the myth of firing fragility really kicks in. People imagine pots just exploding, but thermal shock doesn't happen just because of heat. It happens because of rapid changes in the temperature. Ancient potters knew this. They didn't just toss their pots into a roaring blaze and hope for the best. Placing the pots near the fire before the main event drives off any last bit of moisture and gently raises their temperature, getting them ready for the intense heat to come. No cracks, no explosions, just simple, smart technique. When we think of firing pottery, we picture a modern electric or gas kiln. So the idea of getting clay hot enough in a hole in the ground seems impossible. We assume a pit fire is a primitive, uncontrolled, and inferior method. That assumption is just wrong. A pit fire isn't a poor substitute for a kiln. It is a kiln. In fact, pit firing is the oldest known method for firing pottery, dating back tens of thousands of years. It's an incredibly effective technology that was used for millennia to create hard, durable pottery. A modern kiln is all about creating a perfectly even, oxygen-rich atmosphere. A pit fire does something far more interesting. It creates a dynamic, complex environment that leaves incredible patterns on pottery. Here's how it works. I start a warm-up fire in the pit, which I let burn down completely until it's just a bed of hot coals. I then stack my pre-warmed pots on top of the coals and then build the main fire with wood over and around them. This isn't just a random pile. It's a carefully built pyre. Once lit, the main fire engulfs the pots. A pit fire can easily reach temperatures between 750 and 870 degrees Celsius. That's more than hot enough to turn clay into ceramic. The point where clay becomes ceramic, though, starts around 540 C. At this point, the clay undergoes a permanent chemical change. It can never be soft mud again. As the fire burns, the real magic happens. By allowing plenty of air to circulate, we create what's called an oxidization atmosphere. This allows the oxygen to react with minerals in the clay like iron, producing beautiful warm colors, reds, oranges, and buffs. This isn't a flaw. It's a desired feature that brings out the natural, vibrant color of the clay. It's the signature of the fire itself. There's a certain romance to the idea of lost arts. We imagine ancient artisans holding mystical knowledge that vanished with them. We look at the complexity of a Mimbres bowl or the perfect form of a Pueblo water jar and assume the methods are gone forever. This is one of the most persistent and frankly disrespectful myths. The techniques aren't lost. People just stop paying attention for a while. But they've been rediscovered, preserved, and are being practiced today. How? First, many of these traditions never truly died. They were passed down through generation within indigenous communities, especially in the American Southwest, where potters continue to create work using the same methods as their ancestors. Second, for techniques where the direct lineage was broken, we have the field of experimental archaeology. This is where researchers work to reverse engineer ancient technologies. They don't just guess, they use evidence. They analyze artifacts, study the chemistry of the clay, and look for tool marks. Then they conduct countless experiments, replicating tools, using local materials, and testing methods until they can consistently reproduce results seen in the archaeological record. The pot I'm pulling out of these ashes is a product of that knowledge. The coiling method to build the walls, the use of a smooth stone for burnishing instead of glaze, and the pit firing itself. None of these are secrets. They are skills honed through observation and practice. They aren't lost in time. They are waiting for anyone willing to learn them. After all of this, finding clay, processing it, adding temper, coiling, scraping, burnishing, and firing in a pit, it would be easy to think that this is all just way too much work. The final lie is that this process is so difficult that it's inaccessible to your average person. That you need to be a survivalist, a historian, and a geologist all in one. But look at this. This pot is solid. It rings when you tap it. It can hold water. It's decorated with the beautiful hues from the fire. And every single step we took was fundamentally simple. We used our hands, a few basic tools, and materials from the world around us. Primitive pottery isn't about complexity. It's about intimacy. It's about deeply understanding a single material, clay. It's about the process, not expensive equipment. You don't need a potter's wheel. You don't need an electric kiln. You don't even need to buy your own clay in a bag. All you truly need is dirt, water, fire, and the curiosity to see how they work together. The ancient potters of the Southwest weren't magicians. They were practical, intelligent people who mastered their craft through logical, repeatable steps. They created objects of profound beauty and utility because their lives depended on it. We can learn from them, not by trying to uncover some lost magic, but by respecting the brilliant simplicity of their technology. The idea that ancient pottery is fragile, cracked, or made with lost secrets is a myth born from our own detachment from the materials. When we get our hands dirty and try it ourselves, we find the opposite is true. This craft is resilient, accessible, and the techniques are very much alive. So the next time you see a piece of ancient pottery in a museum, don't see it as a fragile relic from a lost world. See it for what it is, a testament to a timeless, durable, and profoundly human technology. If you enjoyed busting these myths and want to see more hands-on history, make sure to subscribe. We have a lot more ground to cover, literally. And if you're inspired to start your own journey, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. All right, my friends. Once again, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Till next time.